I bet you never asked yourself this question. How is it that 3 of the security guards who work closely to Tupac, how does their stories match up? And the person who owned the company is trying to tell a whole different story. You never asked yourself, why is that? Well, I'm going to explain it to you right now. And I'm going to lay it all out for you. Let's get into some of this straight game.
Blackjack. Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. Hit that thumbs up button. It's very much appreciated. Also, tell a friend. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Like I said, it's very much appreciated. I appreciate your time. And more importantly, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and hit that little bell notification right below this video as you watch it. Like I said, thank you. I'm going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have come across some information that I don't think that a lot of you guys have really paid attention to. And so during the process of me, doing these videos and bringing you this straight game and bringing you, confirmation of information based on documentation and audio, I want to share with you something because it just hit me. And I don't know if you know, but 3 people that were the security guards for Tupac, right, said the same thing. So that's 3 stories that line up, if you will, with the narrative, with the truth of how Tupac felt about death row and the fact that Tupac was actually planning to leave death row. Like I told you guys before, Tupac knew he wasn't actually signed to death row. Tupac went over there based on his bail conditions and so on and so forth, and he agreed to basically go under the umbrella of death row, but he was actually still signed to Interscope. That's a fact. Documentation to prove it. I've already shown you guys that. And so, but the most important part about that, right, is because people have been saying, even Suge said it, to be perfectly clear, when he was asked, was Tupac going to leave death row? And here's what he said.
Tupac was looking to leave Death Row Records. Is that true?
If you'd asked Tupac that question, that was he planning on leaving death row, he definitely would have cussed you out.
And we also have heard from other people basically saying it. Reggie the Wright Jr. He's even said that Tupac was happy and wasn't going to leave death row. Listen.
Suge's ideal was for Hammer, Snoop, Eric B, and Tupac to have their own labels and be distributed by Death Row. So that was the only label that he had. Now, if he had a deal that he was working with Quest and Quincy Jones, who knows? But it wasn't going to be Machiavelli Records. And then also, why would Pac want to leave something or leave somebody who has his freedom in his hands?
And like I said, everybody can have their own interpretation of what it is.
You go to wherever you got to go to get the information, but don't let them know. What way do I do that? How do we own all of this? You know what I mean?
But the people who work closely to Tupac each and every day, his security team, you have 3 people that basically said that he was leaving death row. You have Frank Alexander. Listen.
His new label was going to be Machiavelli Records. It already made up the T-shirts. I have a T-shirt to this day of Machiavelli Records. That was going to be his new record label. Euthanasia was going to be his new company. He was leaving death row. That's why he called an audit.
You also have his other security guard by the name of Michael Moore, right? He also said that Tupac was planning on leaving. Listen.
Due to what I heard in New York about the Machiavelli album, about him requesting his freedom, about him wanting to start his own production company.
And then you also have the other security guard that worked closely with Tupac, Kevin Hackey. He said it.
Did you ever have any actual conversations with Tupac about, like, him not being happy, or is it just something that you saw from the evidence? We started having conversations in July and August and September of 1996 when death row and said that working with
when you deal with these different scenarios or situations, you have three people who said that Tupac was planning on leaving death row, right? You have Suge Knight saying that Tupac wasn't going to leave death row, who basically knew that Tupac actually was not signed to death row, or he should have known that, you know, based on the fact that Tupac never signed an agreement and that Suge Knight was acting as Tupac's manager. He should have known that there was no formal record contract that was signed by Tupac Shakur that made him an official artist under Death Row Records, right? And so then you have Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. from that perspective. And I don't want to mix Suge Knight up in with Reggie because, like I said, I respect Suge. I don't, you know what I mean, have nothing. I met Suge before. Suge's cool. He was cool with me. I didn't, you know, find anything, nothing crazy about him or nothing like that. You know, he was a cool guy. You know, I think a lot of times the media wanted to, you know, really run with the story and, you know, and all of this other stuff that they say about him, even though some of his business practices, I must say, were not up to par and sometimes were downright draconian and a lot of the bully tactics and stuff like that. I don't agree with that, right? But overall, as a person, when I met him, he was cool. And then you have Reggie the Rat Wright Jr., like I said, who really didn't know. You know what I mean? And he would just begin to come up and say stuff that he really didn't know. The funny part about that is Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. was the head of security, right? And if three of your security guards, and Frank Alexander, Michael Moore, and Kevin Hackey, are saying the same thing in various interviews, it behooves me as to why Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. wouldn't know this information. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. I told y'all before, Tupac did not trust Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. Right? And he trusted Kevin Hackey enough. He trusted Michael Moore enough. And he trusted Frank Alexander enough as to say, yo, you know what? I'm going to be leaving. I'm not happy here. You know, the business is not right. You know, they're not giving me my proper accounting and all of the other things that you know, he was talking about, that he was complaining about at that particular time, right? And so from that perspective, my question is why would Reggie, the Rat Wright Jr., come out and then say this and keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it, even after I presented the actual bail agreement that was signed by Tupac, that he signed with Atlantic Records and Interscope Records, in which they bailed him out. They paid for the bail, right? After that, he still tried to insist, you know, Tupac was signed to death row and, you know, Tupac was happy he wasn't going to leave. Why would the head of security continue to say that? And the three security guards that worked closely with Tupac, who would be privy to the information and conversation, you know, personal or otherwise, say something different. And the reason for that is that Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. and Gullible John over at Bomb First have been lying, man. And the reason why they've been lying is because they wanted to paint a narrative, or Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. wanted to paint this narrative that he knew what was going on when he really didn't. He really didn't. And so it's egregious. The most egregious part is that they knew Reggie the Rat Wright Jr., should I say specifically, knew the stance in which Michael Moore took, Kevin Hackey took, and Frank Alexander took, which was basically the truth. You heard him say it.
His new label was going to be Machiavelli Records. It already made up the T-shirts. I have a T-shirt to this day of Machiavelli Records. That was going to be his new record label. Euthanasia was going to be his new company. He was leaving Death Row. That's why he called an audit.
Due to what I heard in New York about the Machiavelli album, about him requesting his freedom, about him wanting to start his own production company.
Did you ever have any actual conversations with Tupac about, like, him not being happy, or is it just something that you saw from the world? We started having conversations in July and August and September 1996. He started Death Row instead of working with us over 2 guys.
You go to wherever you got to go to get the information, but don't let them know. What way do I do that? How do we own all that? You know what I mean?
And you heard Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. try to come with this alternate universe story. You know, now that Michael Moore and Frank Alexander are now deceased, right? Come with this alternate universe story, trying to take control of the narrative when all you have to do is listen to what Kevin Hackey said, what Michael Moore said, and what Frank Alexander said. These are the people who work closely to Tupac. Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. never worked closely to Tupac. Tupac didn't like him. Tupac fired him specifically. There was no other person that he put in that August 27th, 1996 letter firing Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. and his security company, because the other security guards, they still were hired by Death Row. And as like I said, I told you before, Kevin Hackey and Frank Alexander said Tupac said he wanted to take them with him when he left as his personal security on to the next journey. So, like I said, once again, you have to understand what's being attempted is to hijack this Tupac narrative, right? That has already been etched in stone. So when you deal with the facts, listen to what I'm trying to tell you. And all you got to do is watch this video again. Pass it off to a friend. And then ask yourself, why would 3 security guards who worked for Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. and his security firm say totally different from what the head of security is now saying in 2022 when they made their statements in regards to the Tupac and talking personally to Tupac or being around Tupac, Michael Moore and Frank Alexander being in the proximity of Tupac. Frank Alexander, Tupac personally told him, as well as Kevin Hackey, Tupac personally told him. So why is it that the head of security, the guy that allegedly owned the company, right? Why would he be saying something different in 2022? Contrary to what his one-time employee said. As if he knew more than they did. When all he would be able to give you is hearsay or secondhand information because they spent the most time with him. You got to ask yourself that question. Your boy DELRAY, straight game.